it looks like Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not going to have the Democratic primary challenge that we all thought. Tim Canova, who ran against her in 2016, was probably the most high-profile down-ballot progressive. He lost. It came out later that the South Florida Board of Elections, the supervisor of elections, literally threw out thousands of ballots. She happened to be a supporter and friend of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She illegally tossed out thousands of ballots. Canova sued. I haven't heard much about that. So our democracy is under attack from Russia, but supervisors of elections in bed with corrupt politicians like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, them tossing out the ballots. Why would you toss out the ballots illegally? Why wouldn't you be criminally liable for that? If I threw out ballots, you better believe I'd go to jail. Well, Tim Canova today announced he's quitting the Democratic Party, but meaning he's not going to primary Debbie Wasserman Schultz as a Democrat. He still plans to challenge her nonetheless. This is from the Sun Sentinel, who, I'm not from South Florida, but I know enough to say is pretty establishment. Basically writes press releases for the Democratic Party, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz has not been fair in their coverage to Tim Canova. If you don't know Tim Canova, he's a law professor, ran in 2016, didn't take PAC money, was very, very good on climate change, on fracking that has been decimating Florida and threatening its aquifer, on issues like student loans, on ending the endless wars. He's a progressive, capital P, in my opinion. So, why is he dumping the Democratic Party? A defiant Tim Canova said Monday he's changing tactics in his quest to defeat U.S. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz. He's leaving the Democratic Party and abandoning his primary challenge of Wasserman Schultz. He hopes to appear on the November ballot as a no-party affiliation candidate against her. Canova made his announcement during a lengthy and wide-ranging speech outside the Broward County Governmental Center, during which he rallied against Wasserman Schultz, alleging she's a tool of corporate interests, blasted Supervisor of Elections Brenda Snipes on the grounds that she helped rig the 2016 Democratic primary against him, which I just mentioned, complained that the Democratic Party is out of touch with the true interests of voters, and declared he'd soon start campaigning around the state. Several times during his remarks, Canova used the term I'll fill it in, bullshit, explaining that he wouldn't hesitate to forcefully condemn something that he and his supporters didn't like. Among his targets, the leadership of the Broward Democratic Party has its head up its ass. And he explained, quote, "I am not screwing the Democratic Party. It has screwed over too many ordinary Americans and screwed over too many progressive candidates. Wasserman Schultz, he said, is the kiss of death. She's the albatross around the party. He called her, quote, a menace to Florida, the nation, and the world." Strong talk from Tim Canova. Canova said he would travel to Tallahassee on May 4th to officially become a no-party affiliation congressional candidate. The fee to get on the ballot as an NPA candidate is $6,960, cheaper than the $10,440 it costs to run as a Democrat or Republican for Congress. Canova had just $5,157 cash in his campaign account at the beginning of 2018, according to the latest disclosure reports from the FEC. His campaign also reported debts of $35,000, mostly personal cash he lent to his campaign. Canova said on Monday he didn't know how much he had in campaign coffers when the first quarter fundraising period ended on Saturday, but said he'd have enough to cover the qualifying fee. After Wasserman Schultz won the August 2016 Democratic congressional primary in the Broward, Miami-Dade County 23rd Congressional District, 57 to 43%, Canova declined to acknowledge that she won and he lost. In Broward, which makes up most of the 23rd Congressional District, Wasserman Schultz received 26,608 votes, and Canova got 20,504. She won the Miami-Dade County part of the district, 2,201 to 1,403. He repeatedly suggested that there might have been irregularities that altered the outcome of the race. Quote, "We are living at the mercy of corrupt forces in our society. Many of us were skeptical of that outcome." He hasn't offered evidence in support of that claim, but said Monday the biggest mistakes he's made as a congressional candidate was failing to challenge the results in a timely manner after the August 30 race. Since then, in pursuit of evidence, he sued Snipes, the elections office chief, for access to the ballots from the primary. While the suit has been pending, the elections office destroyed the original ballots. So, What the Sun Sentinel left out here, Tim Canova is not alleging it. He's not alleging that thousands of ballots got thrown out. That's what happened. Politico, of all places, exposed this. Let me read you from the Politico, which, credit to them, they don't deserve it usually, but experts. Broward's election chief broke law in destroying ballots. The election supervisor in Florida's second most populous county broke the law, keyword, broke the law, by destroying ballots cast in last year's congressional primary involving Debbie Wasserman Schultz, according to election law experts across the political spectrum. The Congresswoman's opponents has sued to get access to the ballots. The case, one of 3 ongoing independent lawsuits plaguing Broward County election supervisor Brenda Snipes' troubled office, stems from a June lawsuit filed in circuit court by Democrat Tim Canova, no longer a Democrat. He had wanted to inspect the optical scan ballots case in his August 30 primary race against Wasserman Schultz because he had concerns about the integrity of the elections office. Under long-standing federal law, ballots cast in a congressional race aren't supposed to be destroyed until 22 months after the election. And under state law, a public record sought in a court case is not supposed to be destroyed without a judge's order. Sorry, I went up too soon. Snipes' office, however, destroyed the paper ballots in question in September in the middle of Canova's lawsuit, but says it's lawful because the office made high-quality electronic copies. Canova's legal team found out after the fact last month. Quote, the documents were not destroyed because they were maintained in an electric format, Snipes' attorney said. They have the documents. They did a 2-day inspection of the ballots. But Canova, a Nova Southeastern University law professor, and his attorneys say they wanted originals to make sure they weren't tampered with. Digital copies can be altered, they said. 7 election law lawyers interviewed by Politico do not share Snipes' attorney's interpretation of the statute, nor does the Department of Justice's voting division, which is in charge of enforcing the federal law. Quote, if it's a federal election, i.e. there is at least one federal candidate on the ballot, the custodian must keep the ballot for 22 months. Brett Capel, a Washington lawyer with Ackerman LLP, said in an email to Politico, state law may require a shorter time for retention, but federal laws would preempt any such state law with regards to ballots cast for federal election candidates. I could go on, but the bottom line is this. The Sun Sentinel story that I first read, how do you not include the fact that it is now shown, it is proven, that ballots were destroyed? They make it seem like, well, Tim Canova is saying this, but there's no proof. Politico just gave you the proof, goddammit. Excuse my French. It's insane. The only democracy that's provenly under attack is when Russian trolls and Russian troll farms, penetrate the minds of would-be Hillary Clinton voters. But when it's actually confirmed, Brenda Snipes' office confirmed that they threw out the paper ballots. Sun Sentinel, who's in bed with Debbie Wasserman, well, I hope they're not really in bed, but figuratively in bed, with the Democratic Party establishment, with Debbie Wasserman Schultz for over a decade. They don't want to include that in the story. Well, kudos to Politico, who broke that story last year, I believe. And you know what? I'm going to keep it real. I like Tim Canova. I'm not from Florida, so I can't vote there. If I was, I would vote for him in a heartbeat. I think the progressive movement, not just because she's a terrible politician and she's a terrible representative of actual working people, not just because she's corrupt, I think it would be very cathartic and a very big catalyst for other change if Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who other than Hillary Clinton, I can't really think of a bigger face of corruption within the Democratic Party over the years, was removed from office. With that said, I told a friend who is in contact with Tim Canova, you think he's informly helped his campaign, that I didn't think Tim was going to beat Debbie Wasserman Schultz, as a Democrat, that is. I didn't think he should run for re-election run again against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, because that district is heavily establishment. Frankly, it's predominantly older people, a lot of Jewish people. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the first Jewish congressperson from Florida. And I've been down there. I covered it in 2016, the week before the election, and it has a very big smell of establishment. So I thought it would be an uphill climb. I thought it might have been a better move for him to run as for the Senate and primary Bill Nelson. But we are where we are. He's choosing to run not as a Democrat, but no party affiliation. I think that's probably, if he's going to defeat Debbie Wasserman Schultz in November, I think that's probably the best way to do it. Because he needs to get out and run across the state of Florida and raise his profile again. I mean, people know him from 2016, but get out there, because Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it's not just that district. She is a figure in Florida politics. She is a figure in national politics. Most stories associated with her name involve corruption. Most stories associated with her name involve pay-for-play. So I think it's a smart move by Tim Canova. I'm not going to blow smoke up his ass. I don't know if he's going to win. I think it will be an uphill climb. I will cover his race. I'm sure I will interview him. We got a invitation is out there. I'd love to have you on my podcast. Patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. That's Patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. Your support will help me get out in the field to get up close and cover and help expose corrupt politicians like Miss Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Nothing personal, Debbie. Just don't like your politics and corruption. Call me old-fashioned. Or call me a Bernie bro. Actually, just don't call me. Canova, dumping the Democratic Party. I like it. I don't think he would have beat her in the Democratic primary. That district is rigged. Frankly, if paper ballots are being destroyed, and then nothing's happening to that woman who destroyed them, that would be Brenda Snipes. How do you think you're going to get a fair contest in a Democratic primary? I don't know if he's going to get a fair contest in the general election either, but he's definitely not going to get one in the Democratic primary. We will follow what's going on with Tim Canova. He is not a Democrat anymore. Frankly, his policies are not in line with the Democratic Party, just like most progressives' policies are not in line with the Democratic Party leadership as it is today. But make no mistake, the Democratic Party, whether they like it or not, is moving to the left. Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in America. Whether Hillbots or the establishment can't stand it or not, it's the truth. So as they pontificate and try to push Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Kirsten Gillibrand, the data doesn't back it up.